Welcome back to another episode. And of course, I have Coach Tobi with me. Okay, Coach Tobi, today we're going to be answering the ever so controversial topic or question of, can you lose weight without being in a calorie deficit? Dun
Dun,
dun
dun.
dun. No, you have
I know.
it
I
say
had
that.
like. I know. I had that. I had that like Law and Order.
Yeah, so this
Well,
topic, there's a lot of people on social media that claim that calories don't matter or claim that all that matters is calories. And so it's really confusing on what is right or wrong. And I think that Tobi and I will provide a different perspective just to think about and consider, because a lot of times, especially with nutrition fitness, it's neither good or bad or right or wrong. It's a whole lot of gray, and context is always important, and there's so many different things to take in consideration. So we're going to shine a little bit of a different perspective on things. So long story short, can you lose weight without being in a calorie deficit? Actually, yes. Up to a certain point, yes, you can lose weight without being in a calorie deficit. Okay. But here's the thing, above all, be all, if you're somebody that's going for like bigger fat loss goals, okay, a calorie deficit is still necessary. But here are some things to consider. Okay. One, your weight is more
right.
than just your fat and your muscle and your bones, right? Other things that go into your physical weight or how much water you're holding on. Are you bloated? Do you need a poop? Are you a little bit more inflamed? Right. And so, with that being said, we have seen a lot of our clients lose anywhere from 2 to 6+ pounds just by reducing inflammation, water
Yeah.
retention, and bloating. And
Eh,
here's like for a few examples are like, for one, me earlier last year, you remember that, Tobi, when I did that gut health protocol?
Yeah, where you were cranky, so.
Yeah, I was cranky. So just so that you guys know, for about 30 days straight, I did this really, really, really strict gut health protocol. And I ate specific foods for 30 days. I did not go out to eat. I did not drink alcohol. I did not eat any sugar or any gluten, dairy, anything. I also went through a regimen of supplements and all that stuff too. I also was eating more than when I started, and 9-day difference of just improving my gut health. My physique completely changed. Like my abs, I don't have like super defined abs, but my obliques were starting to show a little bit more. And I did see a lot of the bloating, water retention, and inflammation go down significantly. Like things were fitting me better. I felt leaner. I had more energy, so on and so forth. We also have a protocol that we do with our clients. It's called a stress reset protocol. It's for 30 days,
Hmm.
and we do a bunch of big things that help reduce inflammation, bloating, and water retention to really improve internal health, make you feel better, but also help you make you look better naked while eating maintenance calories, because that's one of the requirements in the stress reset protocols, not to be in a calorie deficit or in a calorie surplus, just be in maintenance calories with a few other things. Right. And I know that a lot of people, like we previously just did a cohort on that, and almost every single person that went through that thing, typically the people that did it 30 days straight, they weren't perfect, but they really honed in on it, got consistent at it. They saw a lot of difference. Like their faces looked a lot leaner, their clothes felt a lot better. They saw significant changes with bloating, water retention, and inflammation. So, and Tobi, don't you have some crazy stories with your own clients on like
Yes.
helping those people?
Before I get into this, I was
Mm-hmm.
joking, halfway joking, when I said that you were super cranky because I think
Um,
one important thing we have to preface is that you weren't super cranky because of trying to reset your stress. You were super cranky because A, it was a lot of change from now to then. Like
yeah.
it was very like adamant. And because you didn't get your coffee.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know, I'm a coffee fiend. I love coffee. I'm doing a lot better not drinking too much coffee and managing my caffeine levels, but caffeine is such a part of my morning routine and what makes me happy. I go to coffee shops all the time to work. I just love it. And for those 30 days, I did not drink any coffee at all. I remember Rachel. So Rachel is Toby's wife. Rachel's our director of operations, absolutely phenomenal person. She basically kind of just runs everything. Toby, would you agree? She basically runs us.
Oh yeah, she has access to all my emails, to all my schedules, to probably all my bank accounts.
Pretty much me too on the business side. But yeah, so she was talking to me on the call and she's like, Casey, you're never allowed to do that ever again. Like, okay, sorry. So, but yeah, I wasn't cranky because of the actual things. It was just the dramatic changes within 30
Right,
days.
yes.
Don't necessarily encourage that if you're looking for sustainable change. 30 days is quite a drastic change. It was not able to keep that up, but I did see some significant changes.
100%. But yes, to answer your question, probably the most standout one, if I had to name one person, I would name my client Melanie. Right? Melanie is dealing with a lot of inflammation through various autoimmune diseases, and just by focusing on learning how to gently and use that to learn how to manage her stress that is just there by life, right? Oftentimes when we talk to people and we ask them if what's your stress like? And they say, well, I'm not stressed. But that doesn't mean that there aren't a lot of stressors going on, right? And incorporating anti-inflammatory foods, those kind of things. She lost up to 30 pounds at the max,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I believe.
And I think a big reason, like big things that stood out to me too, because we actually talked to her. We interviewed her one time and she was just going through everything, and she went through, like, she was telling us the story and she literally almost made me cry when she was telling us. She was like, I love moving, I love Zumba, I love lifting weights, and I could no longer even do it because I was so inflamed, I was in so much pain. And
Yeah, she was hurting.
yeah, the coolest thing is her working with Toby. Like, she not only lost 30 pounds, which she was struggling with for years, but she's actually moving. She got her life back. She got her life back. She's no longer in pain. She's able to do things that she loves. And by the way, if you guys don't know what Toby's specialty is Toby is our functional nutritionist on staff. He's the doctor to me. Very excited about that. But his way of coaching is he's a fantastic coach, but he also is able to collaborate with doctors, work with special cases that are beyond just the basics. He's really phenomenal at that. But yeah, like 30 pounds just by addressing inflammation, eating the right foods, and a lot of things that we'll also bring up at the end of this podcast too. But the cool thing is that I want to point out here, and it's very important. If you remember anything, remember this, because this is the way that we actually coach our clients, is if you really take a step back and fix a lot of the health issues that you're struggling with first. You build a solid foundation, you reduce inflammation, bloating, water retention, you have more energy, you feel better every single day. Your body also feels better every single day. Because Toby, me and you both can agree, very rarely do we have somebody that is just inherently a healthy person coming in. A lot of times, a lot of the things that they do on a daily basis, their habits, we all have things that we can get better at. And
Yes.
if we can take the time to focus on that foundation, the good news is that you're probably going to have a lot less resistance, both physically and mentally, if you build a solid foundation first versus not, right? If you have no energy, you're in pain, you have low motivation, all these different things, we can all agree it's hard to want to go walk. It's hard to want to go work out. It's hard to want to do the things you need to be doing in the first place. But if you address the health and also see some really great side benefits too, it's probably going to be a lot easier for you to actually enter, maybe, let's say, a fat loss phase is going to be a lot easier on that end. We always say this: if you try to change the external without changing the internal, let's say I'm trying to lose fat without addressing my health first, more than likely you're going to make the internal worse. But if you fix the internal, a lot of times the external will follow. It'll naturally start looking better and feeling better and performing better. and you're more likely to see the results that you're looking for in the long term. It's going to be so much more sustainable. So make sure that you're focusing on your health first. Up to a certain point, you don't have to be perfect, but like create a solid foundation and then build from there. Go into your fat loss phase, your performance phase, or your muscle building phase, whatever your goal is, but make sure you address your health first.
Yes, think of it in terms of those like pendulum things, where the one ball hits the other one. And on the left and on the right side, we have transformative changes, right? Performance, like not just physically, but also in life. And then on the left side, we have aesthetics. But like in the middle, wherever like the ball returns to before the next one moves is health, right? So everything always has to move back to health. Now, if you're thinking, it's like, well, that's so revolutionary. The external will follow the internal. I guarantee you've heard that before. It's just sometimes difficult to connect the dots with all of that information out there, right? Healing from the inside out. The physical will follow the physiological. These are all ways to explain the same process. And I hope that after today, you'll have a much easier time putting meaning behind some of those sayings.
Yeah, definitely. Toby, why don't we dive into what are the big principles? There's so many different things that affect it, but what are the big principles that affect inflammation, water retention, and bloating?
Yeah, I mean, let's, right? So
Let's dive on in.
I think we can address this or tackle this from a few different angles, right? This will be different from one person to the next. I always think that's important to preface that not every person is the same. Like what works for one person may not work for the other, but by and large, the handful of things that we're going to talk about today are important for everyone. It's just not everyone needs an equal amount of work within each little point.
Yeah, 100%
right?
agree.
So let's start with maybe the easiest one. And by easiest one, I mean the easiest one to incorporate. Hydration.
Yeah.
Right? Just drinking a little bit more water and taking care of those kind of things does take very little skill, just some cognitive effort, right? You have to remember, right? Proper hydration can influence already how many calories you burn, right? Your metabolic rate, your energy expenditure. It makes you feel more energized. Oftentimes, when you feel tired in the afternoon, you don't need a coffee, you need some water, right? It's when we are dehydrated, we get headaches, we have low energy. And just by having an ample amount of water intake, you can improve your physical performance, meaning you get more out of your workout. It allows you to be more effective within life, meaning you can focus better, you will do your job better. And if you work from home, oftentimes it is getting a certain amount of work done before you can log off. So you might even buy yourself time within a day just by drinking more water.
Increasing productivity 1,000%. Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah. I mean, and also that's like one of the easiest wins we have for our clients, right? When you are dehydrated, your body is going to compensate for that. And the way that they're going to compensate by that is by holding on to water. So it kind of sounds counterintuitive, but if you're dehydrated, your body's going to be like, oh my God, I don't know when next time I'm going to get some water. So we're just going to hold on to the water that we have. And that's why people are like, why do I feel so fluffy? It's like, because you're dehydrated. Drink some water.
Camel style.
Yeah.
Camel style. Your body is just going to store.
Yeah. I mean, like, seriously, one of the first things that I do when I'm working with clients is simply just getting them to drink more water because that's a quick win. They're going to feel better. They're going to perform better. They're going to think better, but they're also going to just feel less fluffy. So it's great. So what's the next thing that affects inflammation, water retention, bloating?
This is going to sound cliche, but your gut health.
It's a screw cliche. It's 1,000% on point.
Yes.
1,000% on point.
Casey, since you were the one out of the two of us, like I can probably speak like from the clinical side of things, but you were the person that, at least between the two of us, that went through an actual gut, like you yourself took yourself through a gut health protocol.
Yeah. It was okay, so a little context. The reason why I went through that, guys, is because I was dealing with a lot of gut issues. And we're gonna go a little bit into this, but like a little bit later. But stress in your life has a huge effect in your gut. And I always see this when I go through extremely stressful times in my life, my gut health goes, it's horrible. I get bloated, I look pregnant. Especially at the end of the day or every single time that I eat after. We found through blood work and working with that person that was with me, Hannah, my friend, she took me through a gut health protocol that I have low acidity within my stomach. And so we had to like work with some things. But as soon as we started making some tweaks and working with what works best for my stomach, my pants no longer fit tight, but also on the mindset side of things, I felt mentally better too. It's just like gut health has such a huge hand in things. So some of the including inflammation, water retention, and bloating. So like if you have poor gut health, 1,000%, if you start fixing that and working on that, like I saw it for myself, night and day difference. We see it for our clients too. Like I know that we dive into some of the things that we provide for our clients is a specific food list based off their blood work, or we have a food list thing that we a test that people can take, and they start getting more knowledgeable of the foods and other things that we work on, and it just looks night and day difference, and you feel better too.
Yeah. Isn't even things like traveling set you off, like being on an airplane?
Oh yeah, that too. Good point. I remember when we went to where did we go to? Was it Florida?
Mm-hmm.
I remember we traveled and I was just bloated the whole time. It was extremely uncomfortable. Extremely uncomfortable.
It's crazy. What do you think the next thing is?
Hormonal health. That's a big topic.
Hormones. I feel like we need to, I feel like we need to take a second because that's the newest, and I mean this in the nicest way. So if you're listening to this and you feel that I'm pointing a finger on you, please don't.
Sometimes we kind of need that. Sometimes we need
I
a little
know,
tough
but
love. Just know that we're
it's
doing this with
the,
all the love in the world. Sometimes we need to hear something. It's not always what we want to hear, but we need to hear it. And that's what we do. We're kind, not nice. We're kind to you. We're going to tell you what you
it's,
need to hear because we want to see you win. We're not going to tell you what you want to hear all the time.
yes, blaming or pointing the finger towards hormonal dysregulation for not seeing the results that I want to see is, I feel like in the last 8 months, the newest trend,
Oh, yeah.
right? It's very easy to say it's this thing that's holding me back and not me doing the right things about them, right? It's an
Exactly.
external blame rather than an internal blame. And what did we just say? The external will follow the internal, right? And hormones play such a big role in anything and everything. And like all hormones are messengers, right? Think of this quick running guy that has like an envelope bringing from one point to the next. They signal other cells what to do, right? So they regulate your metabolism, meaning how your body burns calories. They regulate your appetite. They even regulate how your body distributes and stores fat. There's
Mhm.
so much that they do, right? So if we can now pay a little bit of attention to hormonal health through potentially optimizing my diet, certain exercises, maybe some lifestyle interventions, I can already be so much more effective and manage some of these things that I see wrong with me, quote unquote, right? So a great example, and this is another case study of ours, is if I get to balance my insulin levels, I
Is
can
it who I think it
already,
is? Who you're going to mention?
I know it is because we worked with Nicole, and
Uh,
Nicole came to us with a big goal of getting off of metformin. And
mm,
we learned what foods, what lifestyle choices and what including or not including certain exercises or exercise modalities can do to your hormonal household.
Mm-hmm.
And after, it was 10, 11 months in, her doctor took her off of metformin.
Hell yeah.
Right? Which is huge.
Which, by the way, guys, we did a podcast episode with her. We interviewed her. Her story is absolutely phenomenal. Her overcoming insulin resistance, which insulin is a hormone. Insulin resistance, it can be prevalent out there for some individuals. Majority of the population, it is simply just doing the basics better and getting consistent at it. But there are some people that do have a little bit more underlying issues like hormonal imbalances, where you do need to have to learn how to eat, move, and live in a specific way to support your goals. What works for everybody may not work for that individual. There is a population of people that do need that help, and that's something that Tobi comes in and helps with. And Nicole is a great example of that. Her struggling with insulin resistance, she was prescribed metformin to help regulate her insulin, but there were some negative side effects. She goes into it. Again, it's a really great story. I would go back in the podcast episodes. It goes more in depth in what insulin resistance is, what we specifically did with her. But that's such a great example of that, is that learning how to specifically eat, move, and live in a way to help support really great hormonal health and hormonal law.
Yes. That was a good one.
It was a good show. I love Nicole. I love her so much. All right. And then the last one, I think, big one, is stress management, right?
I agree.
Yeah. So Tobi, like, how does stress management affect inflammation, water retention, and bloating?
Oh, I don't even know where to start with that because there's so many different avenues. Let's just take the most basic one. Some people stress eat and some people stress don't eat.
Yeah.
Right? So if I'm in the stress eater category, we just talked about gut health, I may be inclined to consume foods irrationally that I know don't make me feel the best. Now, if I don't eat, and that's me, if I'm stressed, I have this toxic trait that if I'm in a stress situation, I try to fix things that don't need fixing just to keep myself busy so I don't have to deal with the thing that stresses me out. And I forget to eat. And then my stomach also is not very happy.
Yeah. Under eating can definitely
My gut health
affect that.
And my gut health goes under drain.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's probably the most common one.
Yes, 100%.
From there, when we go down the line, when we're stressed, cortisol is being poured out. And cortisol is known as your stress hormone.
Mm-hmm.
As cortisol gets poured out, your body will naturally try to downregulate that. Insulin will rise. Insulin is a shuttle hormone, meaning it drives things into cells and out of cells, which a minor role of insulin is fat storage, right? Especially around the midsection, the abdominal region, right? Now, this can also be caused by hormonal dysregulations, hence why in the functional space, we lovingly call this the hormone belly. Mm-hmm. That's where we see people struggle the most with. But it's also due to stress, cortisol, right? And I'm not saying that you should decrease stress in your life. I mean, if you can, that's great. But a lot of us can't, right? We are parents. We have jobs. We own businesses. We are students. We are responsible for parents in poor health. Like, there's a lot of stress that is just inevitable. But I think what we can do is we can learn how to manage that stress just a little bit better, right?
I mean, like, stress has a huge hand in a lot of different things. So, for example, what happens when you get punched? You swell, inflammation. It's a proper response to stress, right? And so whether it's physical stress, like getting punched or going through a hard workout, or psychological stress, like your boss is being an asshole, or you got 3 kids.
Wait,
What?
wait. What
Huh?
you're saying is working out is stressful, but working out is my therapy.
It's therapeutic, but it's not therapy. And
Yes,
by the way, guys, what we also want to say is that stress is not bad. You need stress in your life. It is very good.
100%.
It helps create change. If you want to get smarter, stress yourself out by studying a lot. If you want to get stronger, stress your body out by lifting heavier weights. If you want to become more resilient to stress, expose yourself to stresses in life, and you'll learn how to become more resilient to it. It's lovely. The problem happens when you're chronically stressed. There's a lot of people that are
Mhm.
chronically stressed because they don't know how to manage their stress. They don't know how to eat well. They don't know how to move well. They don't sleep, all these different things. And so you are just chronically stressed. And when you're chronically stressed, proper response to stress is inflammation. And so that's why managing your stress is really helpful. But here's a couple other things is that your stress is like CNS system, right? Your central nervous system. Okay. Your gut is directly connected to your CNS system, directly connected by the largest nerve in the body called the vagus nerve. It goes all the way up down from the brain all the way to the throughout the body into the gut and all this stuff. And your gut has its own central nervous system too, which is pretty freaking cool. It's really, really complex. We're just kind of diving into gut health. Like we barely know anything about it. It's really cool. But if you've ever noticed, I get stressed, my gut doesn't feel good. Or, hey, my gut doesn't feel good, I get mentally fatigued or moody or irritable. It's because they're directly connected. So if you are extremely stressed, both either mentally, physically, or both, you can see that your gut health is not going to be great. Just like me, for example, right? I went through a divorce and I noticed that my gut did not feel good. So I went through that gut health protocol to help with that because I felt bloated and pregnant, right? Other than that, it was also like just not eating. I got a little like when I get depressed, I don't eat. So I just didn't eat. My gut didn't feel good. If I did eat, I was eating foods that weren't necessarily super nutrient dense, that supports really great gut health and so on and so forth. But also, your hormones and stress go hand in hand as well. So if you're super stressed, a lot of times hormonal imbalances can be caused from some type of stressor, right? We see some people chronically undereating or over consuming foods that like spikes insulin a lot, or all these different things that causes a lot of stress to the body and vice versa. So it's all connected. So managing your stress is extremely, extremely important as well with that. Okay. But I want to point out, Toby, I think a lot of people get confused between weight loss and fat loss.
That's right. Well, fat loss isolates losing just fat mass.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Weight loss is, think of it this way. If I lose fat, I will improve my body composition, right? I will retain or increase my muscle mass, and I will lose fat mass, and I will look more toned. I am looking a little bit more aesthetically appealing in my own eyes, right? But when I want to lose weight, that's just weight. You could chop off your right arm, and
We don't
you would
recommend
have
that though.
lost.
Please
Right,
don't
but
come
you
back
would
to
have
us
lost.
saying Toby just told me to cut off my right arm. So
And you would have lost a bunch of weight. Don't eat. Stop working out. You will lose a bunch of muscle mass.
mm-hmm.
When you have the flu, you don't eat. You lose a lot of fluids. Some people puke. Some people get diarrhea, and we lose 10, 15 pounds within a week. No problem, right? How do you feel? How do you look?
Here at Thriving On, we really focus on fat loss more so
Absolutely.
than weight loss. Because here's the thing that a lot of people forget about is, okay, let's say I go to a calorie deficit. Well, that elicits weight loss. Okay. Now, the important question is, what is that weight comprised of? Most people want to look better, naked, feel better, have a higher metabolism, all these different things. Well, having muscle mass is a huge hand. So what most people are looking for is actually fat loss. I want to maintain muscle mass and lower fat mass. But if you're not doing key principles like strength training, eating enough protein, sleeping, making sure you're not over dieting or eating in a calorie surplus, you can completely change your body composition. Even if you're losing the scale go down, right? You're seeing it go down. You're perfectly capable of having the same body composition. I'm shrinking myself, but I look the same and or looking almost skinny fat. And that's because there is a real chance of you losing more muscle mass than fat if you don't focus more into the fat loss side of things. So that's why we really want to focus on that within Thriving On with our own clients. But that means that you can potentially lose fat and build muscle and not see the scale move at all.
Mm-hmm.
This is called body recomposition.
This is magic.
It's okay. It's not magic. It's magic. It's also the new craze on social media now. I've been seeing it. It's like, I'm a body recomposition coach. And it's like, it's not a magic marketing thing that is just magically going to make people better, but it is part of the process. But realistically, yes, you can see lose fat and build muscle at the same time. Is it going to be as fast as going strategically into a calorie deficit? Or let's say that you actually want to build muscle, and that's your primary goal, going in a slight calorie surplus. No, it's much slower because losing fat and building muscle are two contradictory goals. And so if you're trying to do two things at once that contradict each other, the progress is going to be slower. But I absolutely love body recomposition. I love taking my clients through that. We just have to manage the expectations and know it's going to take longer, but you can't diet forever. You can't be in a calorie surplus forever. So you can do that in between and in a lot of cases get a lot better results, right? People that go through body recomposition changes, the biggest changes that you're going to see are those who have not been lifting and they start lifting. Those who have maybe taken a break from lifting and come back, you'll see a little bit more drastic changes with body recomposition. Or let's say somebody has been lifting weights and working out consistently, but they simply change the way that they're working out. Just like, hey, like I used to work out this way, then I started doing new movements or new workout, and now I'm really, really sore. You're changing the way that you're working out. And so you're creating a certain adaptation, a stressor to create that change. So what we lean more towards is like more hypertrophy style training. So higher repetitions, a little bit lower weight, but also making sure that you're pushing more towards the RPE, relative perceived exertion, of 7 to 9. So like on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being super easy, 10 being like your 1 rep max, like your 7 to 9. That's where it's optimal. And then also proper nutrition and recovery. That is where you're going to see the most gains, I guess you would say, during that time.
Think of this as leaving 3 to 1 rep left in the tank. The reason why we never want to go to complete failure is just at that point the rate of injury just increases.
Exactly.
Right. But you do want to stress yourself enough. You want to train hard enough. And just because you're doing 12 reps instead of 3 or 15 reps instead of 5 doesn't mean that you're not training heavy. Mm-hmm. The feeling of being in a position where you can only complete 1 rep feels equally as challenging. It's just a matter of how great is your rate of injury. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not saying that we should never train heavy because we do want to also get stronger, but generally what we see, and this is now for my exercise science nerds, we do see an equal amount of muscle growth happening if we stay within what Casey just said, that RPE of 7 to 9 range. So if you train challenging enough to only have 1 to 3 reps left in the tank, over a rep range of 5 to 30 reps. So when somebody, that's a huge range. So if somebody tells you you have to train this way, if you don't enjoy it, you don't have to.
Yeah.
As long as you're doing some weight bearing exercise and you push yourself to that only having 3 to 1 reps left in the tank, you are going to see results.
1,000%, 100%. And by the way, guys, our next episode is going to be more over body recomposition, so stay tuned.
Ooh, spoiler alert.
We're going to get a little bit more in depth. So if you're like, "Ooh, I want to hear more about this," we'll do another episode on this. That'll be next. So stay tuned. But like, It's a really great thing. We really encourage it. A lot of our clients go through it and they see really great results. Like, for example, one of our clients, David, he went from 19.6% body fat. He got a body composition test done. He went from 19.6 body fat percentage to 11%. Right. During that time, he gained 4 pounds of muscle, which, for those of you that don't know, gaining muscle is significantly harder than losing fat. And he
Yes.
gained that much time. Like, it was a very short period of time. I think, Toby, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm kind of guessing off the top of my head, maybe like 6 months he did that.
Yeah,
He did
something
less.
something around those lines. Now,
Yeah.
David wasn't new to training.
No, he
Um,
wasn't. So that's even more impressive.
yeah,
So,
because as we get more experienced or our body grows more, what's the word? Grows more used, gets more
yeah, like
used to
it
training,
adapts
gets
to
more
it.
accustomed.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it adapts to it.
yeah, our progress will be slower
Mm-hmm.
naturally.
Yeah.
Our natural progress will be slower, right?
Another girl right here. I know she worked with you too, Christy.
Yeah,
Okay. So,
Christy, we focused on eating more,
mm-hmm.
pick up
Fueling.
the heavy things, like when you go work out. Like, I know it's scary, but if you do it once, you show yourself that you're not made out of glass, that you can do hard things. Now, that doesn't mean that the hard things get easier. You just get better at doing the hard things.
Yeah.
But she ate around 400 to 600 calories more from the time she came to us
Yeah.
to the time she left. But she gained close to 5 pounds of muscle, and through that lost over 5% of body fat.
Yeah.
Right?
I
So the visual changes were huge.
Yeah, I want to point out here, for those of you that think the weight on the scale is everything, and if it doesn't go down, it's not success. Christy gained 5 pounds. Wait, Toby, let's wrap this up with some simple things that people can apply to help them reduce water retention, inflammation, and bloating. And then if they want to learn about body recomposition, again, tune into the next episode. We'll go more in depth into that. All right, just some simple things that are very effective, which I'm going to wrap around back to what Toby said before is majority of people need to just be focusing on the basics. It's not from outside circumstances. Your metabolism is not broken. Your hormones is not getting in the way. Your gut health is not keeping you from being able to see the results that you're looking for. By improving those, it could be easier for you to do, but it's not holding you back. Most people, in order to improve all of those, you simply just need to focus on the very simple basics, which we'll go through some of these, and get consistent at them. If you're really consistent at them for like 3 to 6 months and you still don't see the improvements, then maybe let's take on and look underneath the hood to see what's going on, get some blood work with a specialist like Toby, who specifically works with people that do have some of those physiological barriers that are holding them back. But please, please, please remember, focus on the basics first. If you are consistent at those, then you can look underneath the hood, okay? And if you're struggling with getting consistent at the basics, just because they're simple doesn't mean they're easy, then what I would do is suggest to you to either get an accountability buddy to help you, or if you can swing it, get a coach, because bridging that gap between I kind of know what to do, but I just not do it, that's like the hardest part. That's why we have coaches. That's what everybody struggles with. Like, we live in the day and age where, like, literally everything that we're telling you guys, you have access to it for free. Information is not the problem. It's
Yes.
application that's the hardest. That's why you have coaches, right?
And this is not a shameless plug either. Like, if none of the things that we're saying resonate with you, but you do recognize that some of these things that we're saying, you need assistance with, and you don't want us in your corner, get someone else,
Yeah.
right? As long as you're getting help.
I always suggest just get a coach that you really resonate with, you really connect with. Above all, be all. If it's not us, totally okay, as long as you're getting the help that you need. Right? So let's get into it. Some simple and applicable things that you can add into your life to help you reduce inflammation, water retention, and bloating to see a little bit of better physique without
Yeah.
being in a calorie deficit.
And a little bit of homework
Mm-hmm.
for the people listening.
Mm.
The way that you can approach this after we're going through this is twofold. You can either pick 1 to 3 things that are going to be the easiest for you to implement, right? Path of least resistance, as long as you see some improvement within those things. Or step number 2, if you do have, and this is like for my personality needs, right? If you feel like you're a little bit more stress prone and impatient, take the easy route. But if you feel like you're not stress prone and a little bit more patient, what you can do is you can focus on the things that you feel like you have the most work to do in, right? So it's either you pick the thing that's the easiest to implement, or we're triaging, right? Picking the thing that needs the most amount of attention. That doesn't mean it's the easiest to implement though, right? So we can approach this twofold. But first thing, drinking more water.
Okay. Oh, water. Hydrated.
Hydrate or dihydrate?
Hydrate.
Dihydrate. If you don't drink enough water, you die.
Oh, that's aggressive.
Well, hydrate or dihydrate. Sometimes that's what people need.
Yes, definitely drink some water. So a simple rule of thumb is drinking anywhere from 90 to 120 fluid ounces of water. It's a very general rule of thumb, but a really great start for most people. This can vary depending on your size, activity level, where you live, how much you're sweating, all these different things. Also consider adding some electrolytes. If you don't know what those are, we just did a whole podcast on 7 supplements that we recommend everybody to take. Electrolytes on there. Go listen to that. Okay. The next
before you get your panties in a bunch.
Oh.
A lot of people say that it's the fault of salt that we're holding onto a lot of water weight. Don't blame salt for what eating too much added sugar and too many carbohydrates is doing to you. Salt drives water into the cell. Carbohydrates holds onto the water. It's in the word, right? Carbohydrate.
Which that just happens to be one of the things that we're going to talk about. So I think that's a great segue. Limiting excess amount of sugar and refined carbohydrates, or eating too much carbohydrates for what you need, right? So, yes. And by the way, guys, we're not saying that sugar and carbs are bad. Too much of anything is bad. So, is that from Rachel's little stash over there?
It is.
Last time I visited you guys, I was like taking some of those M&Ms that she got in there. Love that stash. Okay. But can you go a little bit more in depth as to like sugar and carbohydrates?
Yes. So foods high in refined carbohydrates and added sugars do contribute to inflammation and usually to bloating, and that reads that it's usually because of indigestibility, right? If I'm leaving my bottle of orange juice in the fridge for too long, it gets super bloated and the bottle is about to explode. It's because those sugars inside of that orange juice ferment, right? Produces gas. The same thing happens in your stomach. If the things sit in there for too long, they'll ferment, and now we get super bloated, right? So what we should be doing is opting for some whole grains, fruits, vegetables. I'm not saying that you should eat less carbohydrates as a whole. What we're saying is choose where you get your carbohydrates from, right? So you can eat all of your carbohydrates from milk chocolate, or you can get all of your carbohydrates from bananas. Or
our favorite approach, the 80-20 rule. 80% really good carbohydrates and 20% of fun carbohydrate.
Yes, quality matters, right? Yeah. Quality of the foods that we eat matters. 100%. It's, even though we do preach you should incorporate the foods that you enjoy, we're not, as long as it fits your macros, kind of people either.
Quality is very, very important. All right. So I think this is, we're going to segue around into this. I think this is a segue for the next one, is anti-inflammatory diet.
Yes. The easiest way to think about this is eat the way that the people in the Mediterranean part of the world would eat, right?
Mm-hmm.
The biggest thing that we see, if we want to get just a little bit more geeky about this, is we want to see, we talked about this in our last podcast too, when we talked about our supplements, is that we need a certain ratio of inflammatory foods to anti-inflammatory foods.
Ooh.
And our ratio of inflammatory foods is usually 10 to 20 times too high than they should be compared to anti-inflammatory foods, right? So, lean poultry, right? Lean or trimmed red meat, fresh caught fish,
Yeah.
nuts, seeds, avocados,
Olive
olive
oil.
oil, avocado oil, those kind of things.
Complex carbohydrates, lots of fruits and vegetables.
Absolutely.
The Mediterranean
Absolutely.
diet really does support anti-inflammatory piece.
Yes,
Okay.
and I do think there's like a super convenient website called like themediterraneandiet.com. Has like 1,500 recipes from
Yes.
breakfast to snacks to entrees to seafood based to poultry based. Like there's so much there. I guarantee you can make a different dinner every night and you're still not running out of dinner recipes throughout the year.
Oh, 1,000%. Like the stress reset protocol that I mentioned before that we did the cohort with the clients, this is the type of eating that we lean towards during the 30 days. And so a lot of us were simply just like Googling recipes. I was on that website all the time. Lots of really great information, which by the way,
Mm-hmm.
guys, if you're like, hey, I want to look into this Mediterranean diet, simply Google it. It's a very popular diet. There's a lot of really great information. Now, I know some of you guys that have a little bit of obsessive behavior. It's going to be like, this is above all be all the best diet in the whole world. Everybody needs to be doing this. This is the only foods I'm ever going to eat in the whole world. There's many ways to do things. This is a really great way to do. That works for a lot of people. 80-20 rule. All right. But give it a try. Maybe it'll work for you. Okay. Here's another one. Very simple one. That a lot of times I have to have conversations with my clients and they're like, oh, okay, Casey, I guess I'll do it. If you are eating foods that you have a sensitivity to and or an intolerance to, and you're wanting to reduce bloating, inflammation, and water retention, that is an easy fix. Like I have so many clients that are like, yeah, I'm sensitive to gluten or I'm intolerant to this, but I just take medication for it and I'm fine. And I'm like, that's like a sign that your body's not happy and you just are just like, yeah, we're just going to slap medication on it. Or no, I'm just going to ignore it. It's totally worth it. It's like, I get it. Every once in a while, every blue moon, sometimes it's worth feeling like poop. But
yes,
if you're continuously doing it, we got a problem.
Being a glutton is fun once in a while, but think of it this way. This is the equivalent to you jamming your hand in the pantry door and then complaining that your hand hurts. Like, just stop.
Please.
Like, this sounds like such a silly comparison, but that's what it is. Every single time I eat a cookie, I end up shitting myself. Just stop.
Like how is that okay for you? I don't like sitting in the room that much. Like
No,
that's not
stop.
comfortable. But so here's the other thing: is there's some people that just don't know. Because again, like especially if it's a
Yes.
sensitivity, like your body and your mind's going to adapt. Just like you feel the shirt for the first couple seconds and it just goes away. You just adapt to it. And so there's a lot of people that are just you don't know what you don't know, that you're not aware of it. So easy ways for you to get started to see if you do have any sensitivities and or intolerances to your food. Well, if you have an intolerance, you're probably just going to know. Like that's not something that you can ignore. But easy ways is the first one is the easiest, but not, or no, it's not the easiest, but it is the simplest and most cost-effective one is simply the elimination diet. It's a protocol that you do over a period of time where you eliminate foods that typically cause a lot of sensitivities and or intolerances. You cut it out for your diet and then you slowly start incorporating back in a strategic way to know what does cause certain things or not. So you're aware of those types of foods and you can avoid them. Okay. The other ways to do it is getting a food test. Disclaimer, most food tests that you can find on the market that are very effective or very cost effective are not effective or reliable. It's more of a marketing strategy. If you want something that's effective, where it's going to give you a list of foods and not make you fear foods that you shouldn't be fearing in the first place, a GI map is a really great one, but it's very expensive. You poop in a box and they send you information back. right? Or a very reliable food test that's sent to a lab and sent back. By the way, guys, we do have a food test that we use with our own clients. It's from home. They send it to a lab, come back with a comprehensive list of foods that they can start seeing. It's like a range, like foods that don't have like a sensitivity to foods that have more, and you can see what has more of an impact on your health and what doesn't. It's really,
Yes,
really
and
cool.
then from there, it's your own choice. If you very deliberately want to continue slapping your hand in the pantry door, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Just do know I do judge.
Yeah, I do judge. I do judge you. Okay, so the next one is going to be incorporating more pre and probiotic foods into your diet. So pre and probiotic foods, these are foods that you can incorporate into your diet that helps feed really great gut bacteria. If you didn't know, you got little buggies in your stomach. If you got really great buggies in your stomach, you got great gut health. If you got bad buggies in your stomach, you got poop health. Right.
Yes.
That's oversimplified explanation, but I just like calling them buggies.
Yes. Probiotics are your buggies, and prebiotics are the food for the little buggy.
Oh, you're right. Thank you for the correction. You're 100% right. Toby, can you give them some examples of like what prebiotic and probiotic things that they can incorporate into their life?
Yes. More often than not, your prebiotic foods are very basic. Think of this as the things that you are normally already supposed to eat, right? You have some good fiber, right? You have your leafy greens, you have some whole grains. You do those kind of things. You're already creating a great environment for your probiotics. Now, what are probiotics? You probably already know, but it's things like yogurt, fermented food, right? Sauerkraut, not everybody's favorite, but
I love it.
I know you'll love this one. Kimchi.
Yeah, kimchi.
Yeah, I know. It's those kind of things, right? Everything where you're going to the grocery store and it says contains live culture. That sounds strange, but that's what you want. That's your good bacteria, right? Next rule of thumb, if you are getting those kind of foods, choose for the refrigerated ones, even if it's a supplement. Because how long can something that's not refrigerated stay good?
Remember, they're buggies. They gotta stay alive.
Yep.
And then from there, you can add in a lot of foods that help feed the buggies. I'm going to keep calling them buggies. Like lots and lots of fiber, like fruits and vegetables and whole grains and nuts and seeds, which is from the anti-inflammatory diet, and a lot of single ingredient foods that are really great for you.
Funny how things come whole circle, right?
Oh, it's so funny. It's also very simple, which is really great. We don't need to overcomplicate things. Okay. I do need to leave now.
No.
You sure? I don't want you stressed for the rest of the day. I can finish this out and just say, hey, by the way, Toby had to go to an appointment.
Her appointment ran late.
Okay, cool. Awesome. All right. So the next thing on the list is going to be reducing caffeine intake. Another one of slamming hand into the cupboard.
Caffeine is great. If you say caffeine doesn't affect you, that's a problem. It should. Caffeine is a stimulant, right? And very little is shown to have an effect on sleep. And if we don't sleep enough, we will not have great stress regulation. And we talked about stress already. If you don't sleep enough, you will have very poor hormonal regulation. And we also talked a little bit about hormonal regulations. Now, is caffeine great? Yes, it can make you feel some type of way. But you should know, how do you respond to it? You should know how long it takes. It takes roughly 4 to 5 hours for your body to process caffeine by half. It's called a half-life. So you should know how much caffeine you are piling onto each other throughout the day. And by the time you want to go to bed, I know this sounds like a lot of work, but reverse engineer. If I'm having a cup of coffee at 8, that's usually the most common pot of coffee, or a mug has around 180 milligrams of caffeine, which is quite a bit, right? So if you have that at 8, by noon, 1 o'clock, you still have 90 in your system, right? Which means in another 4 hours, which is like 4 or 5 o'clock, you have 45, right? But if you have one at 8, one at 10, one at noon, one at 4, now by the time you want to go to bed at 10:30, you still have plenty of caffeine in your system, and that might not give you the best sleep quality.
100%. And in terms of how much caffeine should you be having in the day, okay, general rule of thumb is no more than 400 milligrams, but it's entirely dependent on the person.
Ooh, I would go further and say that's not even a general rule of thumb. That's the medically recommended limit.
Oh,
Like,
okay. Medically recommended limit.
don't have more.
Yeah. And there's people drinking like multiple monsters or things like that. Sorry, I used to do that in college. I'm place by. But to each their own. We all live and learn. But it's dependent on the person. Trial and error. Try eliminating caffeine for a little bit and then start incorporating more. As there's even some people that have a sensitivity to caffeine. My dad is one of them. He cannot have caffeine. He starts having heart palpitations. Palpitations. That's the word. Words are hard too. Not just math. Words are hard. Okay. But also, one of our clients that I'm working with recently, we found out that she has a caffeine sensitivity and she had no idea. She's like, why am I so anxious all the time? And I'm like, okay, maybe we should take caffeine out. And hopefully we just noticed this, like we just started talking about it. Hopefully over a period of time, maybe we'll start seeing some inflammation reducing, because that's actually a really big goal of hers, because she does have issues with her health when it comes to inflammation. So reduce your caffeine intake. If you're one of those people who's like, I can't get throughout the day without caffeine, you got a problem. Fix that. Get some more sleep,
Yes.
eat some more food, maybe recover more, all these different things. Okay. Next on the list is going to be limiting alcohol and alcohol consumption.
Enough said.
Just stop drinking it. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, but
It's just
eliminating
it doesn't say eliminate alcohol, right? It says limit.
Limit. Yes. Okay, so the way that it works is that alcohol can dehydrate the body. We were just talking about being dehydrated. Your body's going to retain a lot of water. So what you'll see in the weight on this
definitively dehydrate you.
Okay, it does definitively dehydrate you. Thank you for the correction. So it definitively dehydrates you. Did I do good, Toby?
Yes.
Okay. And so we just went through this. When you're dehydrated, your body's going to retain water. So if you ever pay attention to the weight on the scale, you drink a couple of glasses of wine or a couple of beers or something like that. The next day you're like, ooh, I feel leaner. Like maybe the weight on the scale went down. It's just because you have less water on your body. You're just dehydrated as hell. And then the next day it shoots back up, right? So it will cause you to hold on to more water. And also, alcohol is a poison. It puts a lot of stress on your body. So it makes sense that you might be a little bit more inflamed after drinking a few glasses or even one glass. Okay, so limiting your alcohol consumption can help out a lot to help you not only feel better, but reduce inflammation and water retention as well.
It's a primary poison. So the second your body notices that alcohol is present, your body's primary response will be to eliminate.
Yeah.
Right. So everything else will go on pause until alcohol's gone. By the way, I used to love that relationship. You go out, you party hard, you drink a lot, you wake up shredded. Like,
now I just feel too hungover off of 2 glasses of wine and I just can't do anything. Like in college, I could just like bounce right back and be like, all right, guys, let's rebound. Let's go out again. And now I'm like, I hate my life.
Now you have to recover for like 3 days.
Yes. Okay. Another one is just getting sufficient sleep. We already talked about this quite a bit. It has a huge hand in your stress management. It has a huge hand in your hormonal health. It has a huge hand in your gut health as well. So we're not going to beat the horse again. I think that's the analogy. I don't know. You guys know what I mean. But mainly just make sure that you are getting enough sleep. 7 to 9 hours is a good range to work with, and including improving your quality of sleep. If that's something that you suck at, because I know a lot of people do, I recently just did a podcast on that, on how to improve your sleep. Go ahead and listen to that one. But sleep is definitely a big one you want to focus on too. That's going to help out a lot with all things. Okay. The next thing I would say is just regular exercise, regularly moving. Physical activity can help improve your circulation and reduce inflammation. It also promotes the elimination of excess fluids like sweat and urine, too. So if you're not sweating, if you're not moving, you're probably holding on to a little bit more. So get your booty moving, sweat a little bit, move a little bit. But you know what, Toby? Another thing is regular physical exercise, like lifting weights. Doesn't that make you more resilient to stress? Doesn't that help you like with stress management?
It does, because you're right. Again, you're not, I said this before. The easiest way to put this is you're not getting, or handling stress does not become easier. You just become better at the hard thing,
Exactly.
right? When you were injecting yourself with a virus, a vaccine, it's a dead form of the virus. Everybody knows it's really good for you in the long run that your body becomes immune to certain viri. And in the beginning, it's a very stressful situation, but your body recognizes that, overcomes, and then we move on, right? So it's the next time that virus enters your system, it's not like that it's not there. It's just that your body has recognized that before, so it knows what to do with it. And it just doesn't affect you as much. It's very, very similar when we work out.
Yeah.
Right? Your body has recognized this stressful state before. Again, it's very mild stress. I'm not saying that working out will allow you to handle like your life being in flames. Like that won't affect you. It's just that mild stressful situations become easier to handle.
100%. 100%. And I also say that like the amount of like character building that you have, like you create through learning how to do strength training. I'm learning how to do things that scare me. I'm learning how to live outside of my comfort zone. I'm learning how to go after things. I'm learning how to fail. All these different things that come with strength training, like it creates this mindset shift. If I can do hard things in this gym, I'm 100% able to do a lot of hard things in there. Like for a lot of you parents, like in college, you're like, oh my gosh, life is so hard. And now we're here in the situation, whether you're a parent or you're out of college, and you're like, oh my God, I wish I was back in college because that was so easy. Like when you experience hard things, other things that used to be hard are no longer hard. And one really great way to manage your stress is simply by changing your perspective of stress. Is this actually stressful or not? If you think it's stressful, it will become stressful. If you don't think it's stressful, then it's not. And so one really great way to do that is exposing yourself to other things that push you outside of your comfort zone, teach you how to do hard things, and other things won't impact you as much on a physiological level. And also strength training is one of the really great ways to help balance out your hormones naturally, especially your insulin. It helps you become more insulin sensitive, which we briefly talked over that, where that helps with hormonal health. So making sure that you're regularly exercising, but also prioritizing strength training is a really great way to help with these things. Okay. I think we're going to wrap it up with one more thing on here. And I think it's a big one that a lot of people miss. And it's simply eating in maintenance calories majority of the time.
Yes, that's where the magic happens.
Yes, 100%. So for those of you that don't know what maintenance calories is the amount of calories that are going in equals the amount of calories going out. Okay. Every single person has a certain maintenance calories. It's completely dependent on the person. There's so many different things that go into how many calories that you're burning in the day. So if you don't know, there's multiple different ways. A TDE calculator, you can do the trial and error to work up your calories until you start gaining weight, and then go back down to right before you start gaining weight, and that's your maintenance calories. But you want to be eating that majority of the time. That's AKA living. Okay. What most people get, where most people make the mistake is they're either trying to chronically undereat all the time. I just need to eat less and move more, or they're chronically overeating. And then they just go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, whether it's because they've got relationship with food issues, they're chronic dieters, or they just don't know how much food they should be eating. They just have no idea. Most people don't. They widely underestimate how many calories they should be eating in the day. And so when you eat in maintenance calories majority of the time, you're eating enough calories to support really great health, right? Going in a calorie deficit, it's more than just trying to lose weight. You're also depriving your body of energy, of nutrients. It's harder for you to recover. If you do it long enough, it's going to put you in a position to make it harder for you to sleep, to manage your stress, all these different things. And in some cases, you can lose muscle, all these different things that we're talking about that help you do that. Remember, your food is more than just looking better naked. It's also the energy and the nutrients you need to thrive. So making sure that you're eating in maintenance calories as well, majority of the time, is really, really helpful to make sure that you stay healthy. It's when you stay on the one end or the other in a calorie surplus or in a calorie deficit for too long is when shit hits the fan, when problems happen and people are very unhappy with how they look and how they feel. So make sure that you're being in maintenance calories majority of the time.
Yeah.
Yes, stamp it. All right, guys, that wraps it up. There's some simple things that you can apply to in your life. Of course, as always, if you ever have any questions, contact information is going to be in the show notes below. And there's a bunch of other resources down there too. Please go check it out. But above all, be all, we appreciate your time. We appreciate your attention. It means more than you know. We know that you're busy, and the fact that you're taking time to listen to little old us about some nutrition, fitness, and mindset stuff means more than you know. All we ask in return is for you to share this. If you think this is helpful, if you feel like there's a lot of valuable information, feel free to share it in your stories on Instagram or TikTok. I call it Tickety Talk. Or send it to your friends and family that need to hear it. Yeah, if you're not watching the video, Toby just made a face. Yes, I know. That really did age me right there. I call it Tickety Talk. But again, share the information. We're just here trying to make as many people as possible into CEOs of their health. That requires more knowledge. That requires getting evidence-based and ethical information out there to help people live their best life. Right? That's our mission. So by you sharing that helps us with that mission. Other than that,
You're welcome.
yeah. Toby, thank you so much for joining. This went longer than what we thought, and I appreciate your time. I know that you're busy, but
As always, it usually is so. Like when I go over on time with some of my clients, I'm always saying, welcome to calls with me.
Yeah, we talk too much. But thank you so much, Toby, for joining us for this podcast episode. Other than that, have a great week. Until next time. Bye, guys.
Bye.